live? We're live. Okay. Woo! What a interesting week we've been through already. Had an assassination attempt, allegedly, on Trumpy Boy, which is... well, there's a lot we have to dive into on this one. I don't know. Have you been going pretty... I mean, I got plenty of friends that are like heavy into this, and it's kind of making me go into it. What's your opinion on it?
So far, I haven't gone too deep down the rabbit hole. Of course, social media, short forms, started like the clip of him not dodging I guess he dodged a bullet literally because he turned his head and he dodged a bullet. So I saw former President Trump dodge a bullet. Yeah. If that's not proof that we're in a matrix, I don't know what is. But overall, man, I've just been trying to. For me, the part that I find most fascinating are one, the occurrence and how it was even able to happen in the first place. And two, his reaction to everything that happened. I think my biggest takeaway from this entire event is just that we as a people, as Americans, need to do better. Like point blank, period.
Do you think it was inside job? Do you reckon he was a lone actor?
He was, in my opinion, he was a lone actor on the day of, but in regards to the overall setup, like in the overall attempt, I can't fathom a reality where a 20-year-old kid is able to plan and execute a nice, successful assassination attempt on a former president. There, in my opinion, there has to be someone or a group of people who radicalized him and who gave him the resources that were necessary in order to make that occur.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, that's what, as soon as we heard about it, both my wife and I, our initial reaction was, do you reckon it was staged? And honestly, the only thing that makes me like 100% certain that it was not staged was the fact of how close he was with the bullet. Like if it was just a random, there was a shooter, I would still be questioning if it was like a move from Trump to be like, see, they're after us.
Yep.
But like, dude, this thing just gets weirder and weirder and weirder. The fact that this kid was in a BlackRock commercial 2 years prior, like what I said to Stace, I'm like, there's probably there's gonna be three options of realities. One is like he's a crazy person who, if he's 20 years old, he's lived 8 years of his life hearing that Trump is dangerous, he's evil, he is a bad person, et cetera, et cetera. Like from when he was 12, he heard only negatives about this dude. So also being a loner, like all those things, but also either it's a crazy lone actor, or it's a hired assassination, or the one that's more real, I think, is if you are someone who has a vested interest in getting rid of him, you find someone who's easy to be radicalized, and then you hey, you should do this, because it's so easy to then distance yourself from it. And there's so many things we're going to go into like that. I've just had this is the problem. It's like, this one, it has too many things that are weird about it for us. Like I just found out something recently about a certain group that bet that his stock would drop the week before.
Now, what?
So we'll get into that. Yeah. And yeah, there's a couple other things that I've got like theories of. Anyway, we're going to get into that one in a second. But first up was, the dodge of the dodge is insane.
It is.
I watched that so many times because if you watch that video, he moves his head the exact probably the exact time the trigger was pulled, which if you told me like the story and I didn't have video evidence, it just sounds like a made up Trump story. Like at just the exact moment that the guy pulled the trigger, he moved his head, like divine intervention. It's like it sounds like bullshit.
Yeah. It sounds like something you'll see on TV.
It's like it just sounds so made up of a story. that if there the fact that when I've watched a couple of videos recently, and it's like just every time the fact that he goes at the, because like the sound of the gun, you got to remember, like he moves his head, then you hear the shot.
Yeah.
The bullet moves faster than the speed of sound. So the bullet, by the time you've heard the shot, the bullet has already passed his head. So like you watch that moment and you're just like, it's such a humbling thing, even though it hasn't happened to like you or I personally, like watching it. Oh, yeah. Holy shit.
Well, you said two things you said I think were really insightful that I really want to talk about, like the shooter. And what you pointed out is if he's 20 now, then yeah, since was 12, he's been hearing his entire teenage life, which is when you're most impressionable too, you know? And I think us as adults, especially like being in the marketing world, we are aware that hyperbole is a great tactic when you're trying to create someone up to be an enemy, right? He's worse than Hitler, or he's the new Hitler, right? Like people say those things, and many of them probably just using it as a technique and not as a factual representation of the truth or even their beliefs. But for someone who's 12, you're like, oh, if this person's like Hitler was a bad person, we should have gotten rid of Hitler years ago. Therefore, if, you know, in the reality where he is a lone actor, like that narrative getting drilled into his head since he was 12 years old is definitely probably one of the factors that led to this event occurring. And I think you did a great job talking about that point, about the fact that he was 12 and like, Jesus, I remember when I was 12, I thought, you know, I was a kid because I thought going Super Saiyan was real. You believe anything when you're young.
Well, that's the thing, is like what makes it so much easier to radicalize a kid like that is you can tell him that he's actually doing a good thing. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, oh, I'm trying to kill this guy. It's like, well, no, I'm trying to preserve democracy, because if this guy is like the man with the Charlie Chaplin mustache, there's always that thing, like if you had the opportunity to shoot Hitler, would you do it? This kid has been presented most likely that sales pitch of, this is your chance to shoot Hitler before he gets into power. And we're going to help you. I don't know who it is. Like when people like, it's these people, it's like, I don't know. Like, it's like when people say the government. What's the government? Some bad actors in the CIA, some bad actors in the FBI. Like, that's not the government. That's
a bad actor.
A part of it. But yeah, so the weird thing though, is so this is the weird thing that's happened in the last couple of days about the Trump assassination. There is a investment company called Austin Private Wealth LLC or something like that. On July 12th, the day before the assassination attempt, the SEC made it public that that Austin Private Wealth put forward a short bet of the equivalent of $1 billion against a 6+% drop, I think, of the Donald Trump stock. So that became public on July 12th, but it was placed on June 30th. Now, since then, here's the thing that's crazy though. So the people that own a majority stake in Austin Private Wealth LLC is Vanguard and BlackRock. Wow. So bear in mind that this kid, this shooter, was in a BlackRock commercial 2 years prior. And also, so first of all, you hear that, you're like, all right, cool, that's probably just a conspiracy theory. Again, it's too perfect. Austin Private Wealth LLC has allegedly made a comment that it was a mistake placed bet. So they haven't even denied it.
That's a mistake with a lot of zeros behind it, if that's the case.
Yeah, and so here's the thing too. Because his stock shot up after it, which, you know, from The Big Short, that's very bad because now they have to pay money. They're just apparently, and this is just speculative, they said it was a mistake, that it was never meant to be placed, so it's disappeared off the SEC. Now,
Wow.
what they call that something like a naked short or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that they probably didn't have that billion to give up.
Yeah.
That they probably um, so they were doing it because it was a quote quote sure
Yeah.
thing in the short term. So and they were going to the thing as well, like that $1 billion bet, if it dropped that 6% from something crazy like Trump dying,
Yep.
they would have returned 700 billion to $1 trillion.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is, you know what's even,
And the head of that's come out saying like, nah, it was a mistake. So even though it's gone up, like now they should be owing money,
yeah, yeah.
but they're like, nah, it's a mistake. Don't worry about it.
That's fucking
So,
crazy. And
and like
oh my
there's
God.
screenshots of this. I've seen it. And like, yes, it's this screenshot is actually on the SEC website.
Wow.
The so the fact that that came public the day before his attempted assassination, and that company is owned predominantly by BlackRock and Vanguard, has a lot of weirdness to it.
Absolutely. It really does. It has, I mean, there's a saying where there's smoke, there's fire. And me personally, I do believe that human beings are capable of more than we know in both a good way, but as well as a negative way. And I think that you can be corrupted by greed and a bunch of different things like that. So there is a world where I can see that being totally plausible. Now, the poetic justice of that, if that is the case, where it was a collusion and a plan, by those entities, is the fact that not only did the stock rise, like the entire, I feel like for many people, the perception of Trump has now shifted so dramatically because of his immediate response after having his ear shot. Right, to get back up and raise his fist victoriously, because there is I know, right? But there's a world where, even an assassination attempt would drop the stock, right? Because, perhaps investors may view it as, okay, this person's life is at risk, and maybe that was part of the analysis in that judgment call. But not only did he not get assassinated, he stood defiantly in the face of death. So it had
Yeah.
the very much opposite of the intended effect.
Well, I think it's more just like it's just becoming so apparent, the narrative in terms of, and look, this is coming from a guy like, I don't think Trump was ever in it for the people fully. He was a lot of it. He was in for Trump. So this is not like I'm not some pro-Trumper thing. I think it's just interesting watching the corruption play in real time. They play, and they're doing the textbook thing. Like, this isn't the 60s where you can just shoot the president in the head like they did with JFK. It's more like, so they did the same thing with Nixon, with Watergate. And now I'm not, this is just me regurgitating what I've heard from another investigative journalist who actually did a full investigation into Watergate with Nixon. They basically JFK'd him because he was anti-war, and they couldn't kill him because it was too soon. Then it becomes obvious that every person who's anti-war ends up with a hole in their head. So what they did was they put through this Watergate thing, exposed by accident some recordings of him, and therefore forced him to resign.
Wow.
So they were trying to do that with Trump. Now, the difference with Trump, if you take him through the courts, he's a billionaire. And you don't get, like, as a billionaire, your second office is the courtroom. So you're taking this guy who's an extremely successful businessman in New York, by the way, you're taking him through all these bogus Trump charges, which is no pun intended, and none of them are sticking. The last one is like, well, okay, maybe if we change if we can get him on a criminal charge and have convicted felon Trump, that'll put people against him, but it only put people more towards him because it was becoming so apparent. All right, none of this is working. And underneath the legal system, a criminal can still run for president, which is hilarious. So they couldn't do it that way. So then now they've resorted to, all right, an assassination attempt, which I think it's just, that's the thing, is like every time this happens, and dude, this assassination attempt is so on brand for Donald Trump. and I'm taking this from Bill Maher, like Donald Trump, it's so on brand for him that someone shoots at him, it hits him in the ear and shoots someone else's head off. That's so on brand. That's so on brand, like,
Yikes.
And like, someone else gets killed by the bullet that was meant for him.
So, that is on brand. Yo, and did you hear that story, by the way, of that person? My goodness. Like, I think that this entire thing for me as a bystander has, like, to circle back to what you said earlier, because the 2 points I wanted to touch on was, one, how young the shooter was, and two, how this entire experience was humbling. For me, it was humbling because of, one, it just really exposed, I think, everyone's mortality. Because, I mean, he was almost assassinated. Like, my niece and nephew were watching him. They were watching it live. And I remember, even thinking, like, wow, like, it can be any of us. But number two, as a man, the individual that leapt on top of his family to protect them, and, thoughts and prayers going out to them. But that, to me, is the type of man that I aspire to be. And I would argue every man should aspire to be. To be able to for your wife, your child, whoever, to put yourself in harm's way, literally. My goodness. And then for Trump to have him nearly have his head blown off, and to get up, look in the face of his supporters, and galvanize them with a powerful gesture and a powerful statement. To me, I'm like, I just gotta do better. Like, I just gotta do better, bro. I don't have no felonies. I haven't been shot at. Like, am I even a man?
Yeah. But so, do you know the one room I would love to be in right now? So, assuming this was an inside job, an assassination attempt, someone had radicalized this kid, we're going to lean on the side that that's what it is. The one room I would love to be in right now is the room of whoever it was who was trying to get him killed. I want to know what they are trying to, like, what they're trying to figure out now. Like, crap, this was a set thing. Like, this was a done deal. We had $1 billion riding on this bet. Like, what was their gameplay after this? So here's my theory of what they're trying to do. And it's tied into what they did during the Vietnam War. So you can't arrest people that are protesting against you, because that's directly against the First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of protesting. So in Vietnam, what they did was, because the hippie movement was direct protesting against the Vietnam War, and this was becoming a real problem, like a real annoyance for the military industrial complex. Instead of arresting these people and putting them in prison, what they realized was these people were doing a lot of psychedelics. And so what you can do is push around a bunch of propaganda showing how dangerous psychedelics are and how it makes people dangerous. It makes them this, that, and the other, to push forward laws to make psychedelic drugs into Schedule 1 narcotics. And so then what you can do is break apart the whole hippie community that are protesting against your war, arrest the leaders based on these federal drug charges, and then you disband the entire movement. So right now, if I was to put on my tinfoil hat, the main group that is against the military industrial complex right now is a lot of MAGA supporters. But you can't just start putting them away in prison, because that's just blatant corruption. So what they're doing right now is what we've seen with COVID. It's become, anyone who supports Trump is a white supremacist. They're a danger towards people's, and they're a danger towards democracy. They're a danger towards our safety, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we saw how crazy people went when they thought the election was stolen in 2020. And what would happen now if, after watching Trump get dragged through the court system for 2 years to them being assassinated, what would the supportive MAGA people do from that response? Now, they're probably going to be wielding guns. They're probably going to be, now you can justify excessive force against people who are probably going to do excessive force in return to something so blatantly corrupt like that without proof. Now, and now you can do a mass incarceration of the people that are getting in the way of the military industrial complex. And the next thing I heard Alex Jones saying, and Alex Jones says a bunch of weird things, but he said something where I'm like, do you know what? If I was that sociopathic person trying to pull strings, trying to get these people out of my way, what Alex Jones said they are, quote, definitely going to do, I say quotations, he's actually like, I'm like, dude, that's kind of what a psychopathic person would do. So what they would do is take some vans, for example, put MAGA branding all over it, whatever it is, we the people, don't tread on me, whatever it is, something that's going to be MAGA related. Park those bomb-filled vans next to a black church, for example. Now, you don't even have to have a MAGA person do that. You don't have to radicalize someone. You can literally just have somebody, like a yuppie, blow up a branded van, killing innocent black people, men and women and children. The audience on the left already believe that they are right-wing, white supremacist, extremist people, that they don't need to find out if this was corrupt. They already know for a fact this is what MAGA people are going to do. We need to do something, and you can now label that group as a terrorist group. And once it's labeled as a terrorist group in the eyes of the law, anyone that associates with MAGA is labeled a terrorist. You can arrest them based on the Patriot Act or whatever has been established. So that would be the next move if that was that person. I'm not saying that's the exact move, but I'm like, if I was on that wall in that room, that's what I think I would do.
Yeah, and I mean,
it just
my God. I mean, so and I agree, it is terrifying, and I think at this point in our lives as an American people, I think we should try the exercise of just suspending disbelief. Because if you would have told me even a week ago that that a 20-year-old kid was going to get inches away from assassinating the former President Trump, I would have been like, there's no way. A 20-year-old? What about Secret Service? What about counter snipers and intelligence? I would have used all the acronyms: FBI, CIA, Hello Kitty. Someone got to protect them.
Hey, equality of hiring changed very quick after that day.
We should.
There was not a single female Secret Service agent at the RNC at all. It was all 7 foot tall.
It was all LeBron James. It was like a bunch of giants.
It was all a bunch of white LeBron Jameses.
Bro.
Not a single diversity hire in that room.
So we should definitely circle back to that, because I think that's a fascinating topic to talk about. But just in general, though, I agree, because I think that, part of what makes dealing with people who are irrational so difficult is the fact that they are irrational, and they're going to think differently than the average person would, and they're going to do tactics that are nefarious that people would never even dream of. I mean, Ted Bundy was portraying himself as someone who was, ill-bodied with the sling around his arm, and he was asking, kind-hearted people to help him put things in his car, and he would bludgeon them over the head, kill them. And for the average person, that's so repulsive, like, oh my God, I'm going to take advantage of someone's niceness and their kindness and their human nature. But to a sociopath, psychopath who doesn't have a conscience, they're like, yes, I will take advantage of that. And so to your point,
and that's what people are like, when they go like, hey, I think that 9/11 was an inside job, for example. People are like, no one would ever kill innocent people like that. I'm like, yes, they would. Like, there are people that view the world as a giant chessboard. Like, there is plenty of people that view that. Like, they say something like 10% of people on the sociopathic scale. But then when you get to people that have a buttload of money, that ratio exponentially goes up, because those are the people that can get past all the other things, because they don't give a crap about bullshit. They don't have emotions that get in the way. Like, so the more power and the more money you get, typically the ratio of sociopaths actually increases. So,
and even in history too, you can see, I forget who it was. I I can't remember his name, but he was one of the big oil guys. It wasn't Rockefeller, it was one of the other ones. But he say it
Carnegie?
again? I think it
Carnegie?
was. Yeah, I think it was. But he literally, like, when people were protesting against like his bad living conditions, etc., he hired a private like militia group, and people literally died. And he was still going on with
Yeah.
business as usual. But like you said, the behavior patterns of those people is because they don't care about ethics and morality and what's right. And I think
Yeah.
back to,
The world is so peaceful.
and I think that's like to your point about the diversity and inclusion hires. It's like, in my opinion, at the end of the day, seen it as a black male, right? I guess not a black woman, but like as a male, like a black male, like I'm a minority.
You can do whatever you want. This is 2024. You want to tuck it, you can tuck it. You don't even have to tuck it. You can just say you are, and I have to agree. You want to go in the female bathroom, Sway? Do you have a penis? Yes, that's totally fine because you identify as a female.
Literally.
I just want you to feel safe in this
Thank you.
environment.
This is like the safest pod ever. Thank you so much. But to that point, it's like there are certain things. So okay, so my background is neuroscience. So in that community, diversity means not just race and sex, or yeah, not just race and sex, but also educational background. Because within a scientific community, in a context of that, like someone being an engineer and looking at some data, they're compared to someone who's a biologist, they're going to have different perspectives, and overall, they help us accomplish our objective more efficiently because of varying perspectives. But if the objective is to protect somebody physically from either physical, like manual fist, or ballistics, or having to pick somebody up and carry them and move them, objectively speaking, a male will be better because the males are physically stronger, the larger, etc. So for me, if we're trying to defend the former president or the president or nominee, whoever, from people who are sociopaths and have billions of dollars, we should put only the most effective people in those roles, irrespective of race, sex, whatever.
It is funny too that they were not that fit looking either. Like the only Secret Service they looked like they were getting was crab cakes and Twinkies in the back end. Like they're secretly getting service from that.
Little sponsored by Little Debbie.
Yeah, but the it's a weird one too. Like, I mean, I had some people say, like that you, I shared it with one person in particular, and they're like, I don't believe anything that happens around Trump. And I was just like, the fact that people are so quickly dismissive, and I'm not even like angry about it because, again, my initial thought
Mm-hmm.
was, I wonder if this was just theater
Mm-hmm.
to further push the Trump train. But half a look into it, and you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
fake a shot like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like, and there's people going, oh, initially it was the marksman, like the shooter. They planned to shoot. I'm like, dude, there is no way Trump, anybody with half a brain, is going to be like, all right, you're going to shoot at me and skim my
Yeah,
head.
no, no,
Uh-uh.
no fucking way. The
Dude.
margin of error was way too small, way too small. And why do you think? Why do you? Because I had a similar reaction too. I was like, is this cap? And then I looked into it. I was like, there's no way this is cap. Especially when people were just,
It's matter is AI. Like,
mm,
there's so much stuff now that we don't even know what to
yeah,
believe. But back to the thing about like people wanting to believe whatever they want to believe. Um, so many people aren't even aware of that. Like, I mean, I was talking about to the in-laws. I'm like, I can show you something that just confirms your
mm-hmm,
bias, confirmation
mm-hmm,
bias. It doesn't even have to be strong, but you will believe it. And like an example of that was the 4chan thing that went viral that was allegedly, it was a 4chan post and it was from a guy claiming to be the sniper at the top. Cool. All right. We got some balloons popping up. Don't know how I made that happen. Thanks, Riverside. So yeah, like where did that come from? It must be an Apple thing. I don't even know if I can do it again. For anyone just listening, I just had balloons come up through my screen.
fucking dying. That was awesome.
What if I do this? Yeah.
Okay, I'm locked in.
So yeah, there was a 4chan thing that went viral, and it was from the alleged sniper on top, and he was saying that he got told for 3 minutes to wait by Secret Service. I got sent that by a bunch of people who want 100%, not only believe but want to
Mm-hmm.
believe it was an inside job. And the second I saw the text, I was like, hey, this is a 4chan post. 99.9% of the posts on there are fake
Yeah.
trolls. It's probably fake. Now, I'm not saying it, that doesn't mean it's not an inside job, but I'm saying that the chance of this guy posting on 4chan is
Yeah. Yeah.
extremely unlikely. But that's that bias. So like, again, it's like people are so hardened to wanting to see what they want to see. Like, for example, I saw Joe Biden post on his Twitter a video literally just going at Trump like a day and a half after the assassination attempt. And the top comment was, I guess reconciling and, putting aside our differences is already over. And I was like, ha ha ha. I then needed to watch a bunch of Republicans do the exact same hypocrisy to keep me in the middle, because straight away I was like, yeah, this is so left. And then I watched the Jon Stewart thing, and the Republicans are doing the same thing, to the point where they're like, we need to come together. And then 2 days later, the RNC, they're like, the left is a bunch of demons worshipping, blah, blah. And then this guy in particular who said that borderline speech then got called out for his hypocrisy. And he's like, oh, the teleprompter played my old speech, not the new one. That's your excuse, bro? You're blaming the teleprompter now. Okay.
That's what a great job to have. We can just blame the damn computer got me speaking crazy again.
That used to work before the internet. Like the internet now, it's made it so hard. And I think this is part of the reason is politicians used to be able to lie or say, I will do this, and then 3 days later do completely different, be like, well, no, I never said that. And you're like, yes, you did. But if you say, no, I didn't long enough and strong enough, I can just gaslight you into like, you're full of shit. But now's the first time in history where we're like, we have the recording, multiple video evidence.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the trust in all the government is just falling to shit, because everyone's just like, dude, you're all a pack of fucking liars. Like even Trump. Trump lies all the time.
So because for me, one of my core beliefs is that one of the best ways to navigate life is to just be accepting of human nature, right? So for example, number one instinct, everyone's just trying to survive, and at the end of the day, everyone, once their survival needs are met, they're like worried about their family and friends and stuff like that. Like, everyone is basically self-serving. So it's like, okay, we know that people, if you ascribe to that belief to some degree, you're aware that, hey, people will lie and you can't believe everything. So especially with what's going on now, what are some things that how do you think we should view, like how do we even know what information is true versus what's false, etc.?
Dude, it's hard. The problem is, it's like, I mean, I probably can sift through the bullshit a little bit better because I'm at least I know how AI is working. I know a lot of that stuff, and it's still past what I know, but it's like, I think like Schultz put it so well, where the internet to our parents is like what phone scamming was to our grandparents. Like our grandparents never had people lie to them, call them up and be like, hey, your credit card's got a problem. We need the details. You could scam our grandparents with that because that was so bizarre. Like, why would that happen? Right now, probably like a couple of years older than us and whatnot, most of them, they have no idea of consistency bias, confirmation bias, and like even our age as well. It's like, hey, dude, this is full of shit. This is fake. Like, hey, this website has repeatedly lied to us. Maybe don't believe it. Just because and like, again, I fall victim to that many times where I'm just like, initially I'll see something and I'm like, yeah, that's right. And I'm like, wait a minute. How many other lies has this thing done? And it's, like I said, like whatever political thing I'm feeling at the moment, I need to go to the other side. And I'm just like, bro, they're just as fucking bad.
Yeah.
So it's more that where it's just like, it's just navigating it. And I think now with the advent of AI is insane because now you can have, like, you can still tell the difference, but I've had people, our parents' age, send me stuff of like Obama doing a speech talking about how stupid people are and this and that. And I go, look at his mouth. That's fake. And like for me, it's so obvious. But for them, they're like, it's a mixture of see how evil the Democrats are and look what they said. It's like, hold on, that's not proof. also you can tell his lips aren't moving
For
at all.
now.
Uh, yeah, and so like I mean, I'm always getting told that I'm always telling people they're wrong, and I'm like, but you are, and that's fine. Like I sent a video to Stace the other day of this guy with this giant tree frog that was like, it was like a foot tall, and I was like, holy shit, I want to buy this. And 3 seconds after I sent it to her, I was like, fuck, that's so obviously fake. Green tree frogs are not that big, you fucking idiot. And I still fell for it because I wanted it to be true. I wanted a 1 foot tall green tree frog. Like, but at least I caught myself in 3, but I had no vested interest in that having to be true because I wasn't in danger. Whereas when fear's involved and you think that the Democrats are trying to take over or Trump's trying to get president so he can become a dictator, that's got fear. If you got fear, like it's so much harder to be told like, hey, that's actually bullshit.
Yeah, that's actually such an interesting point about the fear aspect, and how it can just exacerbate, one's susceptibility to manipulation. And I think one of something for me that I'm trying to get better at is these headlines, man. I don't know if you saw, but there was one for a period of time where it said that what did it say? It said I think it said like Trump rushed off stage by Secret Service because he fell down or something like that.
Oh yeah, that was
bro. That changed my entire perception of the world. Like to know that,
really?
Like in regards to know that like a headline could be that egregiously wrong. Because for me, it's like I can understand headlines being factually incorrect, right? But like people have died, people are injured, and this was an assassination attempt, and you said that the Secret Service rushed him off because he fell? I'm like, to have that amount of, you have that, the cojones of the balls of that copywriter. Oh my God.
They're now trying to say, allegedly, they're trying to say that like Trump wasn't hit by the bullet, he was hit by the glass from the teleprompter. Like that's how crazy confirmation bias and consistency bias is within us, that if you hate Trump so passionately, you cannot even admit that a bullet skimmed his head. You have to be like, well, yeah, someone shot at him, but it wasn't as bad as you're making it out to be. Like that's the power of consistency bias and how it has to stay in us, because you can't just be like, yeah, that's kind of fucked up. It's like, nah, that didn't even happen. Not only can I see video footage, but I can show you video footage. You can be like, nah, it's not what happened.
That's
like
crazy.
That is something that's getting thrown around right now.
So here's my thing. So because I've had this thought experiment within myself, and I said, if that were Biden, would people have reacted just as strongly? Because Trump is one of those individuals that he is so polarizing. He's almost like a Tate, right? Like people don't do research at all, and they can make their lasting impressions to the point, like you pointed out, where they will not even believe that he, like if he saves someone from a burning building, he set the fire himself type shit. So like, what do you think about him? Is it that he makes him so aggressively polarizing that people can get such entrenched in their beliefs?
I think it just started off, like I've said this before, I'm like, Trump got voted in from CNN. You take CNN out of the equation in 2016, I don't think Trump gets voted in. Because he started, and I know this sounds weird coming from an Aussie who's like, it's not even my country. I mean, it is now, but I watched it happen. And I remember in 2016 when like all of a sudden we're hearing about Trump, and we're like in Australia, and we're like, seriously, this guy's running like the Apprentice guy? But we were hearing about it from how angry the left was about it. But like, that was because CNN, when they first started talking about Trump and like his outrageous character, their base got real fucking angry. So CNN, they're all about ratings. It's entertainment. It's not, it's how many eyeballs can we get? It's not, let's give you the news. When they realized they reported on Trump, it got a little bit more intrigue. It's they just doubled down on more content of him. And I think what happened was, during 2016, the more the left got angry about Trump in the preliminaries, the right reacted to the hate, being like, well, he pisses them off, he's
the
our
enemy
guy.
of my enemy type of thing.
And so, yeah, like your enemy is my enemy sort of situation. So that's what rattled him up, got more following, because the more he would like, again, people would throw insults. Like Hillary would say shit like, this guy is corrupt. And he's just like, I know, because I used to pay you guys. That pisses off the left because he's not on their team. If he was on their team, they would be like, oh, yeah, sorry. But because he's not on their team saying that shit, they're like, how could you say that? That's not how a president should act, which is so ridiculous because it's just a tribal thing. But then the right is like, see, he's our guy. He's telling the truth. But I can guarantee you those things were flipped. The right would hate him. The left would love him. So I think it's just one of those things where it started off that, and then he doesn't really try and extend his arm to the other side, which I don't like. So that's also another thing. Like, at least Obama, love him or hate him, he didn't say insane shit about the right wing during his presidency. He's probably said a lot of his stuff now, but during his presidency, I don't remember a time where he's like, hey, Republicans are bad people. They're trying to do this, this, and this. Like, that is a new thing since Trump. And I think it's just because he didn't really play the game that they wanted to play. Yeah. And he definitely outed a lot of the corruption where he's like, all these politicians are Muppets. If I call any of them, they pick up the phone because I pay them. So it's like he was bullying. Like, a lot of politicians are kind of losers who wish they were the billionaires, but the billionaires control him. And now a billionaire who normally is behind the scenes pulling the strings is in front dunking on the losers at school who have a lot of power. So I think that's where it started. And then when he became president, it was just, he would say funny, wild shit that a president normally doesn't do. And the left didn't know how to handle it. And I remember my boss at the time when Trump was running, he was saying, he goes, Trump will get in. And I was like, there's no fucking way. What are you talking about? And he goes, no, this is why. Trump will get into office in 2016 because Obama was the first president who actually made being president cool, like going on Saturday Night Live, dropping the microphone. Like, he was the first president that became into pop culture. Now the next step is to actually have a celebrity. Like, it was just a natural progression. And he called it, and he even said back in 2016, he goes, but he won't make it. He'll get assassinated.
Oh, wow.
Like, this is my boss when I was at a gym. Like, he called so much shit where I'm just like, this guy's an idiot. There's no way. And then everything he said is played out minus the assassination, but the attempt is at least happened. You know, like, fast forward 8 years, and I'm just like, damn. Robbie.
One of the things for me that I think that, like, to that point about the Trump character, and I think that for me, I think about a lot, like, you know, like leadership and how everything goes like top to bottom, right? And one of the things that I know, or I feel at least, is a lot of division, like culturally within the American people, which is why I started off by saying we as a people need to do better. Because in my mind, with Americans being like the penultimate, like, we are the best people, we're doing the best things. That to me, I feel like that's unity, not division. Especially up to the point of like trying to kill people, you know, no matter what side of the aisle that you're on, to have thoughts be so different. So what do you think? Do you think that Trump's going to be a bit more reserved in his personality and his presentation now that things have become not just divisive, but also deadly?
At least short term. Like, we saw that at the RNC. Like, there was a humility to him. He looked nervous for the first time ever. Like, I saw when he walked out of the RNC, and I sent it to some people. I'm like, he looks shaken. So I do wonder if he approaches it differently now and how he approaches it. Because now I think before it was just like, you know, whoever they are, were taking him through familiar waters. It's, you know, Trump is familiar to being demonized. Like, because he's being famous. Like, when you're famous, there's people that hate you. So he's like, I don't care about that. They took him through the court systems. He's like, dude, I've done this shit before about everything. He's like, so take me through the courts. I don't care. I don't think he's ever had his life genuinely threatened, let alone have a bullet skim past his head. So I think for the first time in his presidency, he's actually, or not presidency, first time in his running / presidency, this is the first time where I think he's realized, oh, I'm in the real big boys game now. I'm in the big boys game where they will fucking kill you. And now they have no problem killing me in front of people.
Yeah.
Like, everyone knows that, if you act up, you get Hillary Clinton. But, I think he thought, all right, I'm bigger than that problem. But now he's into this realm where it's apparent that they will try and kill him again. And so now he's got to like they've kind of put him into like the level of Putin now, and that's my other concern is, Putin is the way that he is because people have tried to kill him. And I don't know if you've ever seen Breaking Bad. When people start trying to kill you, you very quickly justify having to kill other people because it's survival now. Now, I'm not saying that that's Trump. I don't think he would go to that level. But once you're in the crosshairs of bullets, your line of survival, you raise that level. Like when the level is law, you take the other person to court. And he's not the one that's raised that level. Now, I hope it doesn't, I don't know how it's going to happen, but they've now raised this level of, oh, we're going to try and kill you. And so he's now at the level of, all right, what do I do? Do I step the fuck back? Or if I'm going to keep walking forward, I need to figure out who's trying to kill me quick.
Because the stakes are just much higher. Not only that, in regards to the humility.
And so it's like, they could end up creating him. They could end up creating him into someone who becomes a bit of a dictator. Now, I don't think that'll happen again. But again, if you've seen Breaking Bad, that's why I love that show. It's this insight into you end up raising the stakes based on the stakes that are around you, and the way in which Walter White justifies murdering 8 people and hiring hitmen. There's no doubt in his brain. Like he goes, no, I have to do.
Yeah.
Like there's the option is do it or die. And I think Trump has just entered into that realm, and it's going to be interesting what happens because he knows people are trying to kill him now, genuinely trying to kill him.
Something, that's a really great point because it raises the stakes. But I think not only does it raise the stakes for just him, it does for the people, the American people, because now collateral damage is occurring. And I think that to both sides, I mean, as if I could encourage them or persuade them, but I would, if I could, to just be a bit more tactful or more thoughtful about the downstream ramifications of certain marketing tactics. Because people who are pushing a narrative that he is Hitler, are indirectly responsible for some of the damage that has been done to different families, and that's our own people.
They'll never.
Yeah, of course not.
The problem is that, like we saw that with COVID, like people would happily demonize people that didn't wear masks. Yet you call those same people out. Like I have a couple of very close fit people in my circles that very quickly pushed me away because I was a conspiracy theorist, and all that shit's come out now that all of it was kind of true. I should get the little needle. I should get this, and like I'm an idiot because I won't. Blah blah blah. I bring that up now, and I'm like, you do remember that you did blah, blah, blah. That I never did that.
Back to the self-preservation, confirmation bias, the human nature, all the things.
Yes. Also, like, no one ever wants to be the bad guy, and no one will believe that they're the bad guy. So the problem is right now, and I heard this in a podcast on a Patrick Bet-David podcast today, we're at a point now where democracy, I forget the guy who said the quote, but democracy is fantastic with minuscule things like democracy and how wide should we make the road, how how big should the school be. Those things in a democracy are great, but when it starts becoming a democracy around identity, the only way you can undo that is a very, very violent route. Because if you and I had different viewpoints on how wide a road should be, you're like, it should be 8 feet. And I'm like, it should be 10. All right, whatever. We'll do 9 or we'll do 10. You'd be like, okay, fine. Fuck you. But if I'm like, hey, what you believe in, your soul of who you are, we're going to do a vote on whether or not you can do it. there's no peaceful way to come out. If I'm someone who like violently disagrees with the personality within you, there is no democratic way to resolve
Yeah.
that. There is only a violent thing where one will win and one will lose. And that's what this guy was saying on the podcast, which is we're kind of at that space right now where either an external conflict or an internal conflict is kind of at that point, because this is why people get so rattled up right now with why people think the election was stolen, because most people live around like the same people that vote politically. Like it's not this thing where like, oh yeah, my neighbor voted for Biden, I voted for Trumpy, and they voted for RFK. Like there's not really that
Yeah,
now.
not at all.
It's like Florida. I don't know anyone who's pro Biden. I don't know a single person. The internet, I at least know there's a couple, and so then you have that, and you're like, I don't know a single person that would vote for Biden. It was stolen. It's like we've become extremely tribal, that unless there's like a war from China that breaks out that makes people go like, shit, all right, let's put the political things aside and focus on this
the
bigger problem. Or there ends up being some sort of civil internal war. And look, we'll as they said in this thing, it's like it'll be shit. People are going to, have some real problems, but after there'll be a better thing, just like after World War II. So, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, because again, it's like how you've got people fighting for LGBT versus church in schools. You can't just be like, all right, well, Monday and Tuesday we'll do LGBT, Wednesday nothing, and Thursday, Friday church. Like, there's no, all right, cool. It's no, fuck you. It's my way. No, it's my way. And then it's you tell the other, one person has to win.
Yeah.
And so now it's like we're at this thing now where it's identity politics. There's no way, people will vote for Trump just because, and people will vote for Biden just because he's on their team. Like there's not really a democracy at the moment.
Yeah, and I think
because it's personality and your internal beliefs.
And that's one of the things that I think is a shame about. And I think that if anything, this has really revealed a lot of who we are as a people. And I think it's just been highlighted more and exacerbated by social media. I'm not saying social media is bad, but I'm just saying that one of the maybe unintended consequences, I do believe, is the division, because there's been plenty of videos talking about how you can radicalize your algorithm by just engaging with a certain type of content on either side of the political spectrum, or any type of content. And not to mention, like you mentioned, that plus the fact that geographically speaking and who you associate with on a daily basis tends to be people that have similar ideas of you, to you. So then the echo chamber, it's in person, it's online, it becomes a really, ridiculous thing. And I think for me, the question of how I address, like, how do we handle like what's true versus what's false, and what's like the real truth, I think is at the end of the day, it ends up being with results. I think that watching the footage of the assassination attempt and seeing how some of the Secret Service handled, or their lack of abilities to handle the situation, was very indicative of, okay, well, maybe for this particular group of people who are trained to do this task, maybe, what's more important is not the ratio of men to women and different ethnicities. Maybe what's most important is just, can this person do the job properly? Because the results that we're getting is not appropriate. And I think also too, in a political sense, I
think it's not really gonna happen.
Again?
I don't see it happening unless it's like beyond Secret Service. I don't think people are going to be like, all right, because Secret Service was that thing. Like, you've got people still arguing that trans women are women. And they should be able, like, not as a trans woman. It's like, no, it's a woman. She should, be able to
compete with the same.
Compete against women. Like, you still got people that are vehemently, I don't even know if that's the right word, but they believe it.
Yeah.
And not only do they believe it, they're like, if you don't believe it, you are a bigot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, and most of us are like, well, no, you're also just, you're not in touch with reality. Like, there's actual science. Oh, science. I'm like, yes, remember you told me to believe the science in 2020? Remember when you said that?
Like,
Conveniently fucking forgot when a penis and the JJ was involved.
all of a sudden, science is
Believe
not
the
science.
yeah, believe that science. You know, so
No, it's hard, man.
anyways,
It's the whole thing. That's my thing. Is like there's so like humans are so complicated. And I think to your point about like democracy works on the smaller things, but when it gets to like the true like the who can go in what bathrooms, who's what sex, that sex, like what like the questions get bigger. And I think that the humility to even admit that maybe the way that we think maybe the way that we're doing things and the ideals that we grew up upon are not the most efficacious strategy. Maybe there's an alternative like in a world where it's like there are certain people to even ask that question publicly, I would be, what do you call it? Burned at the stake. Right. And I think that's a problem. I think that when you can't have discourse and you can't have, intellectual conversations where you can talk about things and be open, you're going down a really slippery slope. And it makes me wonder kind of like, we hear all these times about the falls of these great civilizations. And I've always wondered like, how did that really happen? It makes me wonder if that was
happens
like that. Yeah.
It's that hard times create strong men cycle. It just we're at this time where I think from the next each cycle goes in 20 years, and right now we're about to go into the hard cycle, and that's going to be the next 20 years. Because basically 2025 through to 2040 are going to be some rough years. But like they say, like the baby boomers had the best time to be alive. Like they're funnily enough the most selfish generation. They had the best. They're the first ones that moved into individualism versus community. They made divorce real popular. They kickstarted that. They're the first generation after World War II. And I think the generation after my kids is going to be the next version of baby boomers. So my kids are about to go through some fucking hard times. Whether or not, I don't know what that is. Again, that could be an external. It's like this guy said on the podcast. I'm going to send you the link to that PBD one. It's the first half is a rough listen, but it's just that cycle, like every reset of a civilization, unfortunately, is just usually a violent
unfortunately one. Yeah.
And it's either internal or external. It's either like a World War II situation, or it's a Civil War situation, or not saying, as the guy says in it, he's like, it's not that it can't happen civilly, it just hasn't happened civilly. Because again, like for me to tell you have to change your identity,
it's hard.
And it's not like to wrap this up, because we've got 2 minutes left. The way he said it probably might happen is once states start going, well, hey, we're going to actually ignore federal rules and federal laws. We're actually going to start being like, hey, we're going to do our own thing. Don't fucking ignore us. That's when problems are going to start happening. Like Texas is already like joking around about being its own country. Tennessee, a lot of these Republican ones are like sort of going like, you know what, fuck the federal government because you're not doing it right. Those detachments, like when a country or something goes, hey, we don't want to be part of you, it's never fair enough. It's a violent one. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope this guy's wrong. But what is going to happen? And it's all those problems, as you said, is like, it's always just like, yeah, we didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
Like everyone's talking about a civil war, like, it's inevitable, blah, blah, blah. But I guarantee if one did break out, people would still be like, holy shit, I didn't.
The same way how with this whole situation.
Everyone says, oh, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then it happens. And I can't believe it happened.
That's the same thing with what we saw with the unfortunate situation with what we saw with former President Trump. Everyone's like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. Da, 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 X, Y, Z, Z, Y, Y. And then something like this happens. Everyone's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Like you were just talking about that.
Yeah.
Human nature.
Yeah. The party that has called him Hitler for 8 years was like, oh my gosh, can't believe someone tried to assassinate him. Really? Shock. Anyways, we'll call it. Good hustle. If anyone's listening to this, hi. Make sure to subscribe. But
yeah.
sweet, man. To lose, people.
To lose.